Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Commodity TV, a new edition of our online interview series. We want to talk to Heliostar Metals, and Charles Funk, the CEO, is here with us. Good morning. How are you?
Thanks for having me, Jochen.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time. I think you have spoken with one of my colleagues at Mines and Money last year, so it's good to really get an update. You guys want to bring back the Ana Paula deposit in production, and I think it's going to be an underground mine now. So, last 6 months is what were the highlights? What's going on?
Yeah, lots happened, hasn't it? And so in December, we acquired Ana Paula off Argonaut. We raised 1.5 times our market cap at the beginning of the year, a very difficult but really beneficial feat for us. And we acquired Ana Paula, an advanced project that we think has a unique combination of ability to become the next mine in Mexico. The grade of it's exceptional, and we think it could grow. So we took the leap, acquired it, and are pushing ahead aggressively.
Super, perfect. Yeah, and before we go into your fantastic drill results, let us shortly talk about your updated pre-feasibility study, which you have done. I think it was also required from the exchange because you had like a halt in your stock price or in your listing, but this is all done. This is all solved. Can you please give us some ideas on this updated pre-feasibility study? Because when I read through it, I think those are pretty good numbers, isn't it?
Yeah, as you touched on, the fundamental nature of the transaction required a halt from the exchange and an updated technical report. So we updated the open pit PFS. We completed that just before Easter, and you're right, they're good numbers. Although our view, as you touched on earlier, is we actually bought Ana Paula because we think it's going to be an underground mine. So we're rescoping it with a view to the underground right now. We're moving beyond those open pit numbers, but they represent a very good base to build from. And we'll probably talk in this interview on why the underground's so compelling, and that comes down to the grades and widths.
Okay, super. And I saw you have done that with a 5% discount rate. That is fine. But what I like really is the long-term metal prices for gold is $1,600 and silver it's only $20. And I say only because I have a much different view on the silver price for the next years. I think it can go easily to 40 to 50.
I have a philosophy, and we as a company have a philosophy that you don't want to buy projects that need the metal prices to move up to make good money. And the attraction of our portfolio, whether it was our pre-existing project, which we still have Unger, whether it's Ana Paula itself, or whether it's the option on San Antonio, they're all high margin projects. So it doesn't matter whether gold's $1,600, an asset like Ana Paula, we believe, will make a lot of money. If gold goes to 22, 25, $3,000, if silver goes 25, 30, $40, that just means we make even more money.
Yeah.
So we've got projects that we think can make a lot of money in the current gold price environment, and I share your optimism that we're in a world where metal prices are going to increase.
Definitely, yeah. Before we come to your press release from the 12th June with also exceptional high-grade results, I want to go shortly back to that high-grade panel. What do I have to understand on that? Because I saw you had like 231 meters with 7.5 grams. That is something which is really rare, I would say, but also 120 meters with over 11 grams, 81 meters with 14.5 grams, 57 meters with 18.6 grams. I mean, those are drill results which are, yeah, really outstanding, aren't they?
They're incredible.
Yeah.
And they speak to our view of the asset. So
Yeah.
the core of Ana Paula, the high grade panel, which is
Uh-huh.
approximately 250 meters long by
Mm-hmm.
100 meters tall by nearly 60 meters wide.
Mm-hmm.
It goes very good grade, and it's surrounded by this low grade halo. And the open pit scenario ended up with a lot of time mining the low grade to get to this high grade. Our view of the underground is let's go in and just underground mine these great grades and great widths. So everything we're focused on in this current rescope, the drill program, which will bring up the results shortly, the first underground mine design, and then the met work, they form the basis of a re-envisaging Ana Paula as a very high margin underground mine.
Okay, so don't get me wrong, but I want to re-ask that because we had questions from viewers. You will no longer start with an open pit and then switch to underground. You will go directly underground.
Yeah, despite the project having the open pit permit and the PFS, if from our concept, the mill design we have is more simple, But possibly more importantly, why would you mine zero point 0.3 to 1 gram material when you can come in and mine 5 to 15 gram material
Hmm.
underground? It does
Hmm.
wonders for the economics to bring that high grade forward, and also means a smaller overall mill. So we think we'll get with lower overall capex with a better overall return IRR. So we think
Hmm.
it's going to be a more capital efficient, more profitable project to go underground.
Okay, super. So, what does the drill results from 12th June, which is just like just 1 week away, tell us to bring that into the whole perspective with the high grade panel? Because you had again 129 meters with 6 grams, 46 meters with 13.4 grams, over 28 meters with over 17 grams. So, what does this tell us?
Yeah, I think there's two key things that come out of this. You're running off numbers that show a consistent core wide high grade zone.
Hmm.
There's now nearly 195 meters of strike where every hole's hit an economic intercept above 15 grams per ton, half ounce
Hmm.
material. These consistently 40 to 55 meter intercepts going 10 to 13 grams show that there's a very robust core in the high grade panel.
Hmm.
What's probably most powerful out of those results, though, is the resource model has areas where it was very well drilled and very well constrained, and areas that there were data gaps.
Hmm.
And in those data gaps, the resource was being conservative. The model was projecting lower grades.
Hmm.
And so hole 291 and 293 respectively were 30 and 139% better than the model predicted for the high grade portion. So what the holes tell us is that we were right to assume that it's a more continuous zone of mineralization,
Hmm.
and that means more ounces potentially at higher grade in a resource update we're planning at the end of this year. So very, very impactful drill holes.
Hmm. Okay, super. So for the next 6 months, let's call it for the rest of the year, what is the drill plan? What is the game plan? What do you want to achieve?
Yeah, so we'll have delivered the rescope by the end of November. This is not something where you're waiting 2, 3 years for someone to say, I can improve these economics.
Hmm.
We'll continue to have drill results through to September, October. A mixture of infill drills and also areas where we think we can add volume to the high grade panel as
Hmm.
well. So that's going to be very powerful. That's going to lead to a resource update in November. So we'll have
Uh-huh.
that updated resource, and that'll be the backbone for the feasibility study next year.
Hmm.
In
Super.
addition, I touched on that there's no underground mine plan. So, dividing the first one of those, which we'll deliver in the middle of the year, is very powerful because we think we can bring high grade ounces forward in the mine life. That's huge for the economics. And then, thirdly, the network. We've assumed a very conservative network number, and we're doing the work to optimize that. We'll have that in September, press release probably in October.
Hmm.
All three of those we think have the potential to really improve the economics of the mine. And if we can make a much more valuable project, then we're a much more valuable company, and that should be reflected in our share price. It's going to be
Hmm.
pretty exciting next 6 months.
Okay, super. So, to what amount of reserve ounces do you want to bring that you can say, okay, now we do the decision, we do the feasibility is also done. What do you think you need to justify to build that mine with, let's say, an X amount of annual ounces to produce?
Yeah, so today Ana Paula is 1.4 million ounces at just under 2.2 grams per tonne.
Hmm.
Within that's a very high grade core. We're hoping to lift that high grade to the million ounce range and grow the overall resource.
Hmm.
And that's just focused initially on the high grade part that's defined today. Then we want to look to grow. Ana Paula's got some deeper holes, some exceptional deeper holes in an expansion zone that's open. It's why a precursor company was putting a decline to look to drill those off. So I think the sweet spot is ultimately to get to 100,000 ounces a year for 10 years.
Hmm.
I think that's a good starting point.
Hmm.
But it's that, we've talked about the grade, which is exceptional. The speed's in the fact that we've got the permit, the open pit permit. We just need to modify that for underground, which is a simpler thing to do in Mexico. We could be in production, feasibility study next year, construction decision at the end of next year. We could be pouring gold in 2026. That's amazingly quick to be able to move. And then lastly is growth, where we were heading. We think that there's a lot more to be found at Ana Paula as we go deeper and look in the land package.
Yeah, and I mean, you still can do exploration while in production, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. So what do you think, and I know this is a forward-looking statement, but maybe just a guess, what do you think would be the capex for such a initial 100,000 ounce per year, 10-year mine life? What do you think how much money you might need? And assume a bit more inflation, and just to give us an idea what might be a amount to calculate with.
Yeah, so you're right, it's fraudulent. I think the way to point to it is what some of your peers are doing. So we'd be proposing something in the 15 to 2,500 tonne per day range. That's very similar to Silvercrest Las Chispas mine,
Hmm.
where they just bought for about $130 million. They built their mill. Endeavour Silver's building Terra Nera. I think it's about 175,
Hmm.
185 million. So you're somewhere in that 150, maybe all the way up to 200 million range,
Hmm. So it's
which
makeable.
offset a little bit by the infrastructure that we have. We have a 400-meter decline, and we have a lot of a camp, a lot of facilities, power to the site.
Hmm.
So we'll be in that, I'd suspect, in that 150 million range, which
Hmm.
is very achievable. One of the things that's attractive is how low that capex is relative to some other operations out there or
Hmm.
proposed construction costs.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Do you have only like gold associated? No, you have also silver associated with it, right? So that might be that you could say, okay, we make a silver stream, maybe stuff like this.
Yeah, it'd be a minor silver stream. 98% of the economics are gold, so it's
Hmm.
predominantly a gold ore body. The remainder is silver. So silver's a small amount, but a useful amount.
But no base metals?
No, there's
Okay.
some anomalous base metals, but no, this will be a precious metal mine dominated by gold.
So straightforward.
Yeah,
Super.
we're proposing a vanilla float and CIL circuit. It's one of the improvements we have on
Uh-huh.
that PFS. Our view is keep it simple and mine very high grade.
Yeah.
It's not for nothing very subtle about it, but we think it's going to be very effective.
Okay, super. I have also a question which I found in your press release. You are also working on the federal, Mexican federal and local government to permit the San Antonio Gold Project in Baja Sur in Mexico, and you're also working on the Unga Gold Project in Alaska. So I think let's say the focus is maybe Ana Paula. What do you want to do with those two other projects?
Yeah, I think it speaks to the bench strength of the projects we have. Ana Paula is clearly our short and medium term value proposition. It's where we're focused on at the moment. We still have Unga, an excellent project in Alaska, just under 400,000 ounces at 13.8 grams per tonne, extremely high grade. And we own it because we believe it can become multi-million ounce. And so we think there's a lot of potential in Unga. It just needs capital. Unfortunately for us, we're in a market that wasn't really supportive of that, and we could buy projects like Ana Paula more cheaply.
Hmm.
Then San Antonio, I think San Antonio is a home run project. 1.7 million ounces at zero point 0.8, most of it oxide and transition, would make a very, very profitable, in my opinion, heap leach project. It's worth a lot of money or nothing, depending on whether it gets a permit. For example, Argonaut Gold paid 100 million US for this in 2010, just to give you a sense of the value.
Wow.
So we've got 3 years to get that permit. And if we do, we've got another 18 months before we have to pay for it. So for us, it's effectively a long dated call option on an incredibly good project. And we'll just quietly work away in the background. And hopefully one day Jock and I can ring you up and say, surprise, we've created a lot of value. That's how we see San Antonio.
Okay, super. That sounds like a game plan. Perfect. What is cash in the bank? Meaning, are you financed until the feasibility study?
Yeah, so we've got 4 million Canadian, which funds this rescope. So we raised 20 million Canadian at the beginning of the year. 13 and a half of that went to the 10 million US payment, and the remainder is working capital for the rescope.
Okay, super. Who are your largest shareholders? What has management skin in the game?
So, starting with our largest shareholders, it was management. On the back of this financing, it's now the Franklin Templeton, a
Hmm.
very well-renowned
Oh,
institution in the
yes.
US. Other big shareholders, Adrian Day Asset Management, Eric Sprott, Phoenix Gold Fund, and a number of other long-only gold institutions. Board and management, I think three of the biggest individual shareholders are either myself or on the board. We own just short of 6% of the company's outstanding capital. That was over 20%, but given the scale of this transaction, obviously we have to come back a bit. We've always put money into each financing, and if you have a look at our track record, you'll see that very clearly. Very, very keen to, all my futures in Heliostar, and I think it's going to be a very successful bet.
Okay, super. Last but not least, let's talk shortly about politics. How do you see, let's say, the change in the in the mining laws coming down from a 50-year concession now to 30 years, stuff like this? Are you affected by anything?
No, the nice thing about, well, broadly speaking, I think it's fair to acknowledge that they are a net negative for Mexico. You're seeing it, with the difficulty to permit in the US, some of the changes in Chile, all through North and South America. You're seeing it more difficult to get projects and mines permitted and built. Perversely, that makes projects like Ana Paula, that are pre-existing claims that have their open pit permit, that have the decline permit, much more valuable. So I take the view that everywhere in the world's making the extractive industry more difficult and giving it more hurdles to go through. So to have a permit that Ana Paula has is extremely valuable. We'll modify that to go underground, but that's a relatively simple step and has been done in Mexico quite recently. So only last year, 20 kilometres away, Media Luna's underground got permitted, for example, that Torex have. So I think overall, despite that sort of harder tailwind for all, I think Ana Paula is very well positioned. I don't know the gold project that'll be in production quicker than Ana Paula in Mexico.
Okay. Wow, super. That was a great final sentence, Charles. Thank you very much for the update. Highly appreciate it. And yeah, it looks like that you have a very nice jewel here in the box, I would say.
Yeah, it shines very brightly with those grades and widths, doesn't it?
Okay, super. Perfect. Yeah, let's talk soon for an update then. And please please us with a lot of good drill results so far. And we really look forward then for the updated feasibility, but also for the feasibility study then actually, right?
Perfect. Thank you very
Super.
much, Eric.
Thank you very much. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, it was Charles Funk, the CEO of Heliostar Metals, and you heard it. They want to bring back Ana Paula in Mexico as fast as possible into production. I must say the grades are exceptional, especially with that high grade panel that looks really interesting. And also, I mean, something in the range of 150 to 200 million dollars is really feasible to get that financed and done. And I think it's the right approach with a 10-year mine life, 100,000 ounces production per year. That is perfect. And don't forget, they still have a lot of exploration potential. So you should check out the company. Thanks for watching us, and bye bye from Switzerland.